We've got 2 or 3 that start next week in the social department. We've got another 4 that we're recruiting from, and all those people, for the most part, are going to be taking work off Tracy, and they'll be full-time roles. So that meeting was basically, we've got our social media manager, Tracy She's going on holiday to Europe for 4 weeks, and we were delegating half of her workload. There was at least, 12, 15 people in there, taking on half the workload of one individual.
So they need a full handover with Tracy, like we need to train them, we can't just let them in.
And they need to watch that video, because even like Tracy and Brie are already slipping back to old habits when they're not following protocol.
It still needs action, so it's know it's to connect.
Okay, cool, because it can't just be an email, like it needs to be a proper
yeah.
handover.
So she goes on the 14th.
Ah, okay.
So we've got 2 weeks to solidify this.
Yeah, that's what we're doing.
Okay.
So that's just community management on the actual ads.
Oh, right.
So each ad will have a link. Each link will be active, but it won't be accessible from the timeline. It's an important part of boosting the reach of the ads, is engaging on the ads.
And maybe they should start doing it before Tracy goes away, like
Oh,
the first.
now.
Yeah.
Monday.
Then we can iron out any kinks.
Absolutely.
while she's here.
Oh, hang on. Okay, no. Start doing the roles.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Like, for a couple of days.
I would say start the handover on Monday and start the execution the following week.
Yeah.
So, yep.
Okay, does anybody have any questions?
No.
This is how many people it takes to cover Tracy. And
This is pretty fucking impressive.
this is half of Tracy's work.
Yeah.
Tracy's still on most of this.
And Brie's list is
Huge.
So this
like
is
all
just-
of these pages are brief.
Fuck me.
But in saying that, Jess spoke to Brie today and she's like, finally, this is the challenge I've been waiting for.
I've been
Thank
waiting
you
for
guys
Tracy
so
to give
much.
me something.
I've been asking
No
for
shit. This is good to know. We've never heard this from Tracy.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Tracy. And this is a really good example of the highlighting of key person risk. Like when you've got one person that is just so heavily involved and heavily entrenched in one role that is so critical to the function of the business, especially on the media side, where any business is vulnerable when you've got one person that has too much on their plate. Not just from the risk that's involved if something happens to them, but the more that someone has on their plate, the more potential for overwhelm, the more potential for stress, the more potential for burnout, immune disorders, immune conditions, and just getting sick. And what's interesting, when you contrast that, we're actually recruiting, I think right now, we've got 2 or 3 that start next week in the social department. We've got another 4 that we're recruiting from, and all those people, for the most part, are going to be taking work off Tracy, and they'll be full-time roles. So we literally have one person that's doing the job of at least 7 people full-time. What I would love to see Tracy do is, rather than being so hands-on, I'd love her to be more hands-off, strategic, and more leadership-orientated, management-orientated, where she's making sure that things are being done at a high level.
I hear a lot of people say, well, how do I know when I'm being taken advantage of? For Tracy, how do you ensure someone like that doesn't burn out?
You force them to stop. I can't tell you how many times we have had to force Tracy to slow down. We've had to force Tracy to hand things over. That's the catch-22 of talent. When people are really fucking good at what they do, they love it so much that they want to keep going. They want to work hard. They want to, in some cases, work until they break. That's good and bad. The good thing is you've got someone who has an internal intrinsic drive that goes well beyond reciprocation for a paycheck. At the same time, you've got to manage that individual from a performance perspective, understanding sustainability and the continuity of the role. And that's number one. A good leader, is a good coach, and a good coach knows when to rest their players. And you've got to know when to rest your players. You've got to know when your players are overtraining. You've got to know when your players are undertraining. You've got to know when to put the pressure on. You've got to know when to pull the pressure off. What leaders have to do is we've got to stay above the game. We can't get too in the game, because then we're a player. And when you're a player, you don't get to see the strategy. You don't get to see the 5 moves ahead. Although, some players do. But, yeah, you've got to see the bigger picture constantly, because that's what leadership is in some respects.